So we talk a lot about property insurance claims, but sometimes we really need to focus on the first part of the whole process, which is putting the insurance claim in with the property insurance company. Okay, you had a catastrophic loss, everything's in shambles at your house, and you wonder, okay, now I've got to put in a claim with my insurance company. How do I do it? Well, first, you're going to need two numbers. Number one's kind of obvious, the phone number of the insurance company. You can sometimes do it through a website, but I recommend you do it with a phone call to your insurance company. So number one, you need the insurance company's phone number. Number two, you need your policy number, okay? Very important as well, because you call them up and say, I'm John Smith. They don't know who John Smith is. They need your actual policy insurance number to know who you are, okay? So you call them up. You've got your phone number, you've got your policy number. At that point, we get to the thing which I call a whole bunch of D's, okay? The whole bunch of D's you need to keep in mind when you first call your property insurance company. First, they're going to want a date of loss. When did the thing actually happen? When did the storm come by? When did the lightning strike? When did the pipe break? They want to know a date of loss so they can make sure that that claim is going to be under the right policy period. Number two, at the second D, they'll want a description of the damage. You'll want to say, hey, my roof blew off, my pipe broke, things of that nature. I've got a leak in my roof. Just a general description of what happened. I mean, you don't need to have a big, long narrative. It doesn't need to be detailed of the things that, it needs to be a fire. It needs to be a storm. Just so they can put it in the right category to make sure the right investigation is done, at least initially, into your claim. Then you have those two D's, and then you get into the D's that are the don'ts. Okay, several don'ts here. Now, you shouldn't try to limit your damage. Don't limit your damage. Don't say to the insurance company, oh, it's just in the kitchen, or oh, it's just in the roof, and I have no interior damage. There's no reason for you to limit your damage to the insurance company. Allow them to see all the damage in the house, and they may find damage you didn't even know about. So number one, first D, don't limit your damage. Number two, don't diagnose your damage to the insurance company. When the insurance adjuster comes out there or you're on the phone, don't say, oh, I had this, but I know it's from this or this. There's no reason for you to diagnose your damage because they would love to go in their file and say, insured says that this damage is not from this loss. That's not going to help you with your claim. So don't diagnose your damage because although you may know your house, there are experts out there who may know the cause of damage better than you. Now, the next D is don't use phrases like flood, okay? Because you don't want to call up after a hurricane or a storm. You don't want to call up your insurance company and excitedly say, there's a storm and my house flooded, okay? That may sound like an actual, okay, I have water on the ground, maybe it flooded. But the reality is if the insurance company hears you diagnose your damage as flood, they will say, well, that damage is on your flood policy and not on your homeowner's policy, and they may totally exclude coverage because most homeowners' policies don't cover flood, okay? Now, flood water is rising water, okay, like a lake or a river or whatever else rises and goes into your house, whereas water coming in through your windows, your roof, or your walls, that would be covered under your policy, okay? But you don't call that flood. It's just storm water, okay? Or don't diagnose it at all. Just say damage, okay? But just don't say flood, unless it really is a flood. Also, don't, or at least be careful using words like mold, okay? Although you may have mold in your house, okay? Understand under your policy, there's probably some very limited, coverage available for mold. Say mold may be capped at $10,000 or something of that nature, okay? But if that same damage was under a water damage portion of your policy, you may have all kinds of coverage for it. So once again, D, don't diagnose, or D, don't use the phrase mold, okay? Because they will go and analyze it. And if it's mold, but you don't want to tell them it's mold because it could be actual water damage that's covered somewhere else. Okay, now you've called your insurance company, you gave them your claim number and all your information. They learned about your loss. They gave you a claim number, okay? Make sure to write down your claim number, keep track of it. So when you call them back later and have to call them because they don't come, you can reference your claim number and they'll get a faster way to know who you are and that kind of stuff. It's also very important to keep track of when you call the insurance company, who you talked to, what response you got, because after a catastrophic storm or something of that nature, there may be gajillions of claims out there, and you may need to follow up a whole bunch to get them out there. So you may want to document in writing when you've talked to somebody, who you talked to, and that kind of stuff, in case you need to reference it down the road. Okay. At some point after putting the claim in, an adjuster will come to your house. Okay, a field adjuster will come to your house, and he'll want to inspect the damage and see what the claim's all about. That field adjuster may have a detailed knowledge of your claim, or he may know nothing but your name and your address. Okay, so when he gets here, you want to show him your damage generally. Okay, show him your damage generally, and then kind of shut up. Okay, that sounds kind of harsh, but the reality is, once again, back to D's, don't go diagnose your damage or things of that nature. Okay, these guys are professionals. They know what to look for. They know what damage is out there. Okay, show them the damage generally, tell them generally what happened, and let them do their job. Okay, their job is to document the entire house and see what damages are out there. Don't limit them to any portion of the house saying, oh, just look in the kitchen because there's no problems anywhere else. Allow them to go and throughout the whole house because they'll want to see and check for damage elsewhere, and you should let them do that. And also, after a storm event, you should encourage them, or actually request pretty firmly, that they go on the roof to check your roof. Sometimes adjusters, some are great, some are lazy, just like everybody else. Sometimes they may not want to go on the roof, but you kind of need somebody to go up there and check your roof out to make sure there's not additional roof damage, or to document the condition of the roof, that kind of stuff. So, try to not let that adjuster leave without going up to look on the roof to see if there's damage up there. A side note about these adjusters that come out there. After a catastrophic storm or something of that nature, where there's just hundreds or thousands of claims coming into the insurance company, a lot of times insurance companies will hire contracted adjusters from other states to come in and help out with all these claims. Okay? Is there something bad about that? No. They're just trying to actually serve their customers by getting boots on the ground as quick as possible. The issue arises is that these out-of-state contractors that come in are trying to do a good job, but they have 10 a day to go do, okay? So they get all these assignments, they go look at your house. They may be from Kentucky, Ohio, Arkansas, who knows, may not be familiar with Florida and their policy provisions and the damage that can be caused by a Florida storm. And a lot of times they'll do, cursory inspections of your property and sometimes write super cheap estimates that way undervalue your damages, okay? So especially after a large storm, when you have all these adjusters coming in and trying to write 10 estimates a day and kick them out, it's very important to go over that estimate when you get it down the road and make sure it's correct, because there's a high possible chance that that adjuster was just trying to get him out the door and missed a lot of your damage. That's just a little side note for you. So once again, they're trying to do a good job, but just a lot of times they just too much work, and they just undervalue the claims or deny the claims. Sometimes take pictures of the wrong house, give estimates of the wrong property, all kinds of stuff. So it's just very important to, especially after a large storm, to really pay close attention to what's going on with your claim. At some point after this, the adjuster will come out, the field adjuster, and inspect your property. He'll submit that report back to the in-house adjuster, the desk adjuster. The desk adjuster will look over it all, and the desk adjuster will then make a coverage decision as to whether there's coverage for the loss, what things will be covered, and whatever else. And then at some point, hopefully very soon thereafter, you'll get a letter from the insurance company, okay, with a coverage decision. Okay, and usually that's the point when the tears start, okay, because you thought that your claim would be totally covered by the insurance company and that they would make everything right because they're a good neighbor. Well, the reality is very rarely do you get that coverage letter that says everything is going to be all right and we'll take care of everything, okay? A lot of times those form letters will come and say the claim is denied. A lot of times they'll say that a partial denial and we'll cover this thing, or they'll come back and say, we found your damages and we did notice damage to your house from a covered loss, but since your deductible is this and we think your damages are this, therefore we'll make no payment to you whatsoever, but have a nice life. And oh, by the way, please fix this damage before your next policy renewal so we can keep insuring you. Okay? So there's lots of surprises that come in that coverage determination letter when you get it. So just make sure when you get it, you have a seat, maybe have a drink or so, a cup of coffee before you open the coverage letter, because a lot of times it's filled with surprises as to what's inside, and very rarely does it make you just overjoyed and happy with the results inside. Okay. Obviously, this whole process, it sounds like it's pretty straightforward, but there's loopholes, there's trip-ups all throughout the whole process. So if you have any questions, this kind of stuff, you should reach out to an insurance claim professional just to ask them questions, to get guidance and whatever else. You can see the studies that are out there. A lot of times, once you hire either an attorney, public adjuster, things of that nature, they can greatly return your return on your actual claim. So they're definitely worthwhile. A lot of people will talk to you just to ask questions. If you have questions in the process, review your policy, whatever else. Most of these services they'll do as an accommodation are free just to help you out. But it definitely makes sense to at least talk to somebody to see if you're on the right track. And you know what? If you're on the right track, great. Life is good for you. But if not, you may want to get help with your property insurance claim because most likely your house, commercial property, whatever, is probably a pretty big investment for you. So you want to make sure it's taken care of. So hopefully this video helped out with some of the process of how to put the insurance claim in. But if you have any questions, feel free to reach out.